So good day everyone. So I am Desiree Monique M. Cruz and this is my dataset. So my dataset entitled Contraceptive Method Choice. So I chose this topic because nirelay ko siya sa current issues dito sa society such as yung paggamit ng contraceptives. Yes, of course, may advantage din naman ng paggamit ng contraceptives such as yung awareness din sa HIV virus and also sa prevention din sa overpopulation. Next is, why do you think it is important? So, yung dataset na to is important because napapakita din dito kung how or gaano ba ka-effective ang paggamit ng contraceptive methods in terms of family planning. So, next is, this is the about of contraceptive method. So, contraceptive method choice is a dataset which is published in the year 1997 rather. So, it contains a multivariate data type that consists of 1,473 instances with 10 attributes whose data are categorical and is represented with integers. So, it is a classification dataset that targets married women who are either pregnant or not to solve problems in terms of predicting the current contraceptive method choice. So this is the attributes of the said dataset. So first is the wife's age. So this attribute is a numerical or represents by an integer. So it represents the age of a married woman rather. So next is the wife's education. So this attribute is a numerical or represents by an integer. So it represents how level the educational attainment of a married woman and has 4 scales, where 1 is considered as low, where 4 is high. Third is the husband's education. So this attribute is a numerical or represents by an integer. It represents how level the educational attainment in terms of the husband or a married man and represented by 4 scales too, where 1 is low, when 4 is high. 4 is the number of children ever born. So this attribute is a numerical and represents by a number as couple siblings. Next is the wife's religion. So this attribute is a binary that represents the woman's religion. It consists of 2 options. 1 is for Islamic and while 0 is for non-Islamic. 6 is wife's now working or the wife's occupation. So this attribute is a binary that describes the woman's employment status. It has 2 options, 1 for yes and 0 for no. 7 is husband's occupation. So this attribute is a categorical and represents by 4 numbers, which is 1 to 4. 8 is a standard of living index. So this attribute is a categorical represent by 4 scales. 1 for low and 4 means high. 9 is media exposure. So this attribute is binary that represents the rate of couples in terms of publicity. It has 2 options, 1 for good and 0 for not good. And lastly is the contraceptive method used. So this attribute is a class attribute that represents the contraceptive method that they use. It consists of 3 options, 1 for no use, 2 for long-term, and 3 for short-term. Next is data pre-processing. So this dataset uses Weka as a tool for performing data mining techniques. In this, the dataset is performed conversion in which some attributes are presented in numeric and convert them into nominal. After conversion, the dataset is normalized. So in this, attributes such as the husband's occupation and the husband's education are removed. So dito sa data pre-processing is, ang ginawa ko muna is, nag-convert muna ako ng dalawang attributes na parehong na nasa numeric data into a nominal data. So kinonvert ko yun is because of hindi siya magfa-function o hindi ma-apply ang association rule kung merong numeric data sa bawat attribute, which is aplikado din yung result ng dataset. So meron din ako na tinanggal na dalawang attribute, which is husband's occupation and husband's education. So, dito is kaya ko siya tinanggal is because nirelay ko siya dun sa pinakang description ni data owner, which is all about sa married women. So, at saka apektado din siya sa pinakang sa association rule kasi hindi, even though ibahin mo yung title nung isang attribute is which is also hindi pa rin siya pwedeng mag-function or hindi pa rin pwedeng mag-function ang association rule. So, the best thing is, ang ginawa ko na lang ay tinanggal ko yung dalawang attribute. So, dito tayo sa data mining technique. So, gumamit ako dito ng dalawang data mining technique which is association and clustering technique. So, first is the association rule. So, this technique uses a priori method to determine the top 10 rules in contraceptive method choice dataset. With the top 10 rules, each rule has supported details such as confidence, lift, leverage, and conviction. So, clustering technique naman is using training set method to determine the classification of the subject. We can also determine the possible clusters of the dataset. Results are presented into a graphical presentation. So, let's proceed to the interpretation. So, the interpretation is, these are the top 10 rules. So, the top 10 rules is, wise education with highly observable, or a woman with high or mostly educated, then high standard living index with 386, and media exposure of 0, which consists of 384 instances. Second is sa wise education which is highly observable din siya. Then sa wise religion is 1, which is mostly Islamic. Then sa media exposure is also 0, which is 430 instances. The next is sa wise age din, which is highly din. Then in terms of wise occupation is 1, which is most of the instances are meron silang good occupation, which consists of 407 instances. And media exposure, which is same as 0, which consists of 403 instances. Number 4 is also a highly educated, which is 577 instances, and media exposure of 0, which is 571 instances. The number 5 is wife's occupation of 1, then high standard living index of 400, which consists of 490 instances. 2, media exposure of 0, which is 478 instances. So number 6 is also a high standard living index, which has 684 instances. 2, media exposure of 0 then, which is 0.666 instances. 7 is wise religion of 1, which is Islamic. Then sa wise occupation of good or not, or good status of wise occupation, high standard living index with 388 instances. 2, media exposure of still 0, which is 376 instances. Then 8 is Islamic din, which is 1 sa religion, high standard living index, which has 529 instances, and media exposure of 0, which is 512 instances. So number 9 is wise education of 3, which has 410 instances. 2, media exposure of 0, which is 392. Then sa number 10 is CMC of 3, which is a long-term contraceptive method of use, which has 511 instances. 2, media exposure of 486 instances. So, kung mapapansin nyo dun sa top 10 rules is mostly in terms of education ay halos ang mga pregnant women or not non-pregnant pregnant women ay mga highly educated. Then in terms of standard living index is highly naman. Then in terms of contraceptive method of use is mostly for long-term uses na rin sila. So most in terms of religion is most of the instances ay Islamic religion. Then sa mutual exposure is hindi sila exposed, which is 0. So in private din sila. And the legend here is WA represents wife's age, WE for wife's education, SLI for standard living index, ME for media exposure, CMC for contraceptive method choice, WC is wife's occupation, then WR for wife's religion, and NCEB is number of children ever born. So sa clustering technique is, kung mapapansin niyo dun sa bawat sa presentation is kalat-kalat sila. Yes, we have here as six clustering technique, which is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, kung mapapansin is kalat-kalat yung data. So, this is the summary and recommendation. So, yung about dun sa dataset is mostly in terms of sa wife's education is meron silang highly educated, which means most of the pregnant women in this dataset are highly educated. Then meron din namang nasa observable or nasa middle status or mid-educated. So in terms naman sa media exposure ay mostly is 0, which is hindi nila pinapublic. So in terms of contraceptive methods of use is most of them are using contraceptives for long-term purposes. Sa white religion naman is, I also observed na most of the women are Islamic religion. In terms of standard living index is also high. So in terms of recommendation is, nagdraw din ako ng 3 recommendation. So the owner must also consider the husband's information. So sa akin din kasi is, mostly nirely lang nung data owner yung contraceptive methods of choice sa pregnant women, which is currently sa akin is dapat is kasama din yung husband doon kasi it is also about a family planning din naman. So next is the type of contraceptive method must be included. So after kong ma-dataset yung or ma-normalize, after kong i-pre-processing, gumamit ng data mining techniques, then nag-present din ako ng graphical representation, nakita ko na dun, and also observing the attributes ng isang dataset na yon is, wala dun yung contraceptive method use. So parang, yes, categorical lang siya, yung parang high, mid, or low, pero wala dun yung types of contraceptive use, such as yung kung ano ba yung ginamit nilang contraceptive or yung sa family planning, such as calendar method, IUD, or so on. So the dataset must be updated every time. So sa akin na yun is, syempre as the emergence of technology din is marami din tayo na propose na marami din mga solutions doon or yung mga nabibuild na or how our contraceptives doon. So parang medyo kulang pa yung dataset na yun. So hindi pa reliable gaano yung dataset. So since hindi lang naman siya pang 1997 lang, so parang ang dapat is maybe ina-update yung dataset kasi hindi lang yung dataset na yun is hindi lang siya pang whole generation na, which is occurred in year lang. So kung magkakonduct siya ng isang dataset is kailangan niya ang every week or every year, every month, which is kasi nagbabago din yung data. Siyempre, nagbabago din siya through statistical purposes. So, that's all my presentation po. Thank you.